de colaboración entre los miembros locales de OGP en sus propios planes con los esfuerzos que se hacen a nivel nacional y como hemos visto y hemos escuchado esta mañana, en la República Dominicana hay un gran ímpetu por continuar con el gobierno abierto. Alcaldesa, por favor.
Muy buenas tardes. En nombre de la República Dominicana, nueva vez, darles la más cordial bienvenida a todos y a todas, saludar a José María, quien es nuestro moderador, y a nuestras compañeras panelistas y nuestros compañeros.
Our panelists today, we will have the opportunity to share this afternoon what we are doing to continue transforming our countries and our territories on the basis of the challenge taken, the commitment taken. As the mayor of the municipality of Salcedo, it is an honor to be able to share this space with all of you. Our municipality of Salcedo has been incorporated recently into the open government as an expression of our political will to widen our coordination, interinstitutional coordination and transparency. We have to transmit that we come from a culture of centralization, but all that had our president this morning heard the commitment that we have assumed in the Dominican Republic and the transformation that slowly we are experiencing. Today, the Dominican Republic have legislation, which is the law of public planification, and Law 176 of the National District and the municipalities, which promotes the participation in civil society and the level of local governments and national governments. Regarding the participation from the municipalities, we work with instrument that for us is vital, which is the participating budget. This allows us, with the communities, to elect those little works, public works, that change the perspective of each municipality. From a municipality of Salcedo, which is my second term, we have the political will of generating the changes in the local government for us to send a message to the national government that it is possible. We understand that development is built from our territory to be able to articulate and the execution of our budget as an instrument implemented in the law. Everything is participation in our local government. Our budget comes from the will of the people and the assembly of the people of the municipality. They are taken into consideration to be part of the local budget, because we think the local solutions have to be accompanied by the will of the people in each of the communities. Regarding the coordination, we have had a great experience with the central government, because it's the first time in history that even the law establishes delegate competition and coordinating competencies, and the National League of Municipalities, which is the government. The government deposited 400 million pesos beyond the executive requirements of the local public policies were taken by this 400 million pesos. That's 4 billion pesos, which covers all the municipalities of the Dominican Republic, which is a clear message from the government of the compromise it has with all the municipalities. The opportunity to give the social participation and identification of policies on the local level is the opportunity to associate the local policies with the lines of consensus development policies of the government. It's good to see how from the beginning of the integration of our country to the open government has been able to include the government in a type of a trial of the compromise that there is between the national and the local governments. The process should strengthen all the coordination policies between the two institutions on the different levels. What we intend is to strengthen the instruments and the democratic spaces existent. The government will not be implemented parallel on those established grounds as the municipality council or the economic and social development councils. It will complement those policies with the organizing committees of each of one, and will be integrated both by the local government and the civil society. It will be complementation between the local and national policies. The open government will be the opportunity to work and challenges and opportunities committed to development. In Salcedo, we have identified 4 areas that we want to share with you, in which we will assume commitments in areas that we have elected as green areas and resilient to climate change, urban living, in social inclusion and participation. We have chosen these 4 areas because they are municipality competence, and the government can assume concrete commitments for other areas. In these ones, we tend to have concrete results and have subjects that are presented by the local people. We have a commitment, we have a challenge, and we understand the coordination of the local and the national will strengthen us to transform the cities, to transform the countries. We have to create a speech to work together and bet on countries that should be more sustainable, where transparency is turned into the rule and not the exception. Salcedo accepts the commitment to work within our administration to have verifying indicators and turning our local municipality into a paradigm of other municipalities of the country, that we can dream. The dreams can become true if we direct and create the history. For us, it's an honor, a privilege to be part of the open government, and we call on everyone to continue working and developing our countries and our cities, and to jointly be able to dream and achieve the dreams in countries that are more just, more solidarity policies, accessible policies. Thank you very much.
Alcaldesa, muchísimas gracias por esa intervención. Creo que es sumamente importante recalcar esa cooperación, porque a pesar de que hay un espacio muy especial para locales para hacer su co-creación, eso no quiere decir que no deben de formar parte de una visión estratégica, una visión de nación para avanzar en el gobierno abierto. Y creo que el ejemplo ¿no? y la voluntad que acaba de exponer es sumamente importante para esa reflexión. Y hablando de políticas de Estado, de gobierno abierto, ¿no? Tenemos el gusto de estar con Adrián Alcalá Méndez, quien es comisionado del INAI en México. Y bueno, México tiene una larguísima historia en gobierno abierto. El INAI ha tenido un papel que no se puede describir con palabras para poder cuantificar, ¿no? el apoyo o el avance que han hecho en gobierno abierto y transparencia. Y desde el 2015, si no me equivoco, han hecho esfuerzos muy puntuales para poder avanzar en gobierno abierto a nivel local. Entonces, nos gustaría, por favor, que nos cuentes un poco sobre ese modelo, cuáles han sido las lecciones y los éxitos que han tenido hasta ahora.
Gracias, pues bueno, gracias, muy buenas tardes, tengan todas y todos. La verdad es que me siento mucho más a gusto y como la alcaldesa pues ya dio pie para estar aquí desde la tribuna, pues también la seguiré. Gracias de verdad por estar, gracias, me siento muy honrado de estar aquí esta tarde, estos días, aquí en esta gran cumbre de América Abierta. Quiero saludar, por supuesto.
Of open government, I would like to greet the panelists and our coordinator, Jose Maria Paul, for this great opportunity. I would like to talk about the Mexican context. As you know, Mexico is a federated country, integrated, formed by local governments and the federal government too. It's on our shoulders. There are more than 8,000 public institutions in the whole territory, both at the federal and at the local level, federal, state, and municipal level. We all converge in what the transparency law in the year 2015, when we have the law of transparency, we have different objectives to homologize public policies in terms of transparency and in personal information and personal data, and establish a national system of transparency where the 8,000 public institutions or of public interest, and they are part of all the public policies that we have. That includes the political parties. So our system of transparency gave us the law of 2015, the capacity to establish public policies, which are standard in all our territory. In this sense, in 2015, we had the model of open government, which is applicable to the whole territory in the same circumstances for all. It does have some particularities I can point out, and I'm grateful that Gustavo Parra from Mexico is here, and two other commissioners, one from the state of Jalisco, Pedro Rosa, and from the state of Nuevo León also, Paco. We established models of institutional opening. In Mexico forms part of the OGP since 2011, and it's also true that in the light of this law, we want to transit it toward an open state. What we want now is to transit, to move toward that model. How does this come up? Well, with four articles, the organizations and the civil societies, organizations of civil society, can implement organizations of transparency. It doesn't establish a difference. That is, both have to converge in order to promote these mechanisms of institutional opening. So what did we do in Mexico? In 2015, even though we had wide experience in open government, since we implemented it, three action plans with a three-party organization, a technical secretariat, where you had the federal government, local government, and the social society. What did we do? If we want to create a model of open government applicable to the whole territory, it can come out of the Institute of Transparency. It can be emitted by the system of transparency. It has to integrate, and we have to understand what is an open government with the organizations of the civil society. That's when why we had a national consultation of experts, academics, participated in it nationally and internationally. And this is how we emitted this new model applicable to the whole territory. There were bases and principles in order to establish this. And where we noticed that the participation of the society had to be active. We can't speak of an open organization if we don't have the participation of the social society. As I had said before, the LINEAI and the Government for Transparency, we even though we are founders, we have learned how to do that, how to make open government. In Mexico, we have 4 action plans. We just finished the 4th one. We also learned clearly that the confidence is very important for this model. The organization of social society abandoned the mechanisms because they a matter of trust. But we were able to recover this in 2018, and we had then the 4th action plan, where we have been, the IRM has given us a result of a lot of satisfaction. The LINEAI in this 4th action plan not only limited its action to be a facilitator. It was a joint between a bridge between the government and the federal and the society. After the 4th action plan, the LINEAI became responsible of the access of cooperation in terms of. This is why we have a more active role, more participative as a national institute, being responsible of a commitment of this 4th action plan. We are in the process of elaborating the 5th action plan, thanks to the organization of the civil societies and the governments, the local governments. What we want to do is homologate to make the local agenda, state agendas, with the federal agendas, so that the action plans have a greater impact in the environment of any person, not only at a federal but also at a municipal level. Also comment that we have emitted 3 diagnoses known as the metrics of open government. These metrics, different to other measurements in all governments, it's an essential component. It measures the grade of opening from the vision, from the point of view of the citizen, not only of the authority, because lots of metrics are based on this. In, in the opening from the governmental point of view, here we have the citizens' vision, and is measured by both. That is, how transparent are we from the point of view of the government, and also how transparent are the institutions from the point of view of the citizens. If the mechanisms are activated from the point of view of the citizens, and if the information available available from the public institutions is opened from the point of view of the citizens and the government. We have had 3 editions of the metrics of the open government. We have to be honest. In the last measurement, we had a setback of a few points. Maybe because of there was a change of government, or because of the pandemic. But we cannot keep this in silent. We have to be self-critics. If we don't admit that we have had a setback and identify the roots of the problem, then we will not be able to advance. So the truth is, it is a very critical topic. But we admit that we had the setback, and we're working to improve next year. I also wanted to say that from the beginning we are advancing to become an open market. We also want to establish a metric of open justice. This will allow us to know the degree of opening of the judicial system. If we want to implement a mechanism of open justice in Mexico, we have to know where we stand in order to start implementing mechanisms of measurements in the judicial system that are more effective and efficient. These metrics, obviously, as we said, is not done by the Transparency Institute. It is done by an autonomous institution that will tell us the state of opening from the point of view of the citizens. How satisfied is a citizen with his system of justice? I'm not saying a winning or losing, because somebody has to win or somebody has to lose, or sentence or left free. But how satisfied am I as a citizen with the just services that the ecosystem serves in terms of justice? When I speak of eco-justice, I talk about the police, the courts, the electoral courts, etc. The whole eco-justice system in terms of Mexico. This will allow us to know from our point of view where we are going. It's like when we go to the doctor, this allows us to tell us how we are and where we should, what medicines we should use. Maybe in Mexico, these things are uncomfortable in Mexico, but we have to be clear and tell the public system what is needed. Before I conclude, I just want to thank the opportunity of talking about the Mexican experience, and make available to all of you all of these opportunities that we have in Mexico in terms of access to information, transparency, and opening, and also in the organizations of the civil society. I'd like to conclude thanking you for the time and the space that you have given me. On behalf of our Mexican colleagues, thank you very much.
Thinking of the important role that the INAI has in Mexico to articulate this vision of open state, has its time, its complexities, but definitely in a parallel way, it's a process of OGP in Mexico has been an example of progressive example. Thank you for sharing. And now I would like to comment and give the floor to Delfina Perez, who is the National Director of Open Government in Argentina, and has a very interesting experience on a commitment to establish a federal government of open government in which a vision is articulated of open government in Argentina. Thank you. Good evening, everybody in YouTube. I will be staying my seat. It doesn't have to do anything with my new shoes that I have wearing now for the first time. In the time that I have, I would like to share a practical experience that we had in Argentina with something that we had to, yesterday we had to contact points that could be separate meeting that we can organize for those who are interested in more details, and thinking in details of how to materialize the local national policies. We have some experience on very concrete experience that we had in Argentina. First, tell you about the open government initiative that we initiated in National Plan with the Ministry of Interior. In 2019, we started to work with the ministry to promote these initiatives of open government and to train on thematics related with open governments and open local governments. This, as I said, is also joined by the necessity of being able to materialize this on a local way that were also implemented in the OGP. Then there is a very clear purpose that there is a necessity of not only the government and the society, but to focus on open governments to be translated into national policies. With this as an example, we started its own challenges, which is now a year of transition. In that year, we had a commitment with clear objectives, but it was not very complete in some of the aspects that were able to be widened and worked on, and the design of the joint effort. In the first year of the pandemic, which was a very complex time, we took the time to think jointly, not only on the national level, but on the civil society, the academy, with those that had a lot of experience in open governments, because there are local governments that have walked through this agenda. And we made 20 interviews in the community to references of the agenda, and with some local and provincial governments that did not have such more experience in open government, to understand what was understood to be a open government, and how they thought that it should be materialized to be able to achieve the goals. We did not have a way to do it. It was not clear. So this allowed us to have some insights regarding the agenda, in which we designed a question mark of questions, and with those we widened up the opinions of received, and with the social the civil society and with organizations that work with institutional development. We made a workshop with these points, and with all those input and the Ministry of Interior, we started to think how we could materialize this federal program that on the first place had to be done a replica of the action plans of the local and national governments. The national governments and some local governments had the logic of the action plan. So this was a co-design of the conversation, gave us the possibility to understand that before we go into the implementation of definite policies, we had to have a strong component of training. We didn't, like our predecessor talked about implementation. The results of the design told us that yes, we had to generate a conversation between the different provinces and local governments on open government to effectively be able to implement what we understood was open government. Above all, with participation of the social society, of the civil society. Then we continued to the rest of the Republic, and we ended the design, which took about 1 year. First, we had a purpose, then we had a design, and that gave us the framework to be able to formalize it on the national level, which is now finishing this year, and had 3 stages. The first stage was an introductory course to focus on open government. We designed a course which implemented by mentors, local mentors, and a second course of methodology to be introduced with the focus on open government, which had a specific public for public service of local and provincial public services, focusing on open government. But we learned that we did not have to focus only on open government, but with the civil society and the general government. So it was more directed to tutors or trainers that was turned into virtual self-teaching methods. And today we have the participation of about 4,000 persons. We had the necessity to continue promoting open government beyond the local administration. And we found a way to do it, to reach more people with the flexibility, which as a learning point, we as public servants, we have to focus in things that are only reliant to the government and the public services. But the citizenship wants also to know and have the facility to be able to operate in public policies and to be in contact with the state beyond the formal process. And that's something that we have to learn. And the last part, which is the focusing on the implementation, we work with 50 public projects, 12 projects of provincial governments, and another group of projects of the local level. We're still working with these, but with a density of factors and open government participation very wide. As I said before, we had a lot of jurisdictions that have already had an experience and that are part of operating systems of open government. There are many municipalities and local governments that do practice open government, but they don't know that it's practicing open government. So with the design we have made, with the participation of all, has allowed us to incorporate more municipalities to the agenda, and to first an introduction, second a training of the methodology, and three, to have another stage of implementation, allowed us to incorporate this, what I'm saying, local government that had not been working on the agenda. And we had to understand that when we talk about mechanism of open governments, we have some interior questions, but what we want is to open the agenda to everybody, to understand that there are local government, to have a web of the municipality is a key factor. Many times we disregard the possibility of having more strict projects, of avant-garde of projects. But what we do is we have to open so that more people participate in these discussions, and we must be able to flexibilize on this. As last point, share with you that we had interinstitutional training. We have a committee, an advisory committee, and strategic allies that share with us the process. The Ministry of Public Works, which has a very wide transparency grounds, the national government, the direction of the woman and gender. We strengthened with having other local governments and provincial governments to give special workshops on the experience of the local experience that they had, the province of Buenos Aires, of another province, to show the workshops on what the open data project was. The government of Cordoba made a workshop on ODC, which is an agenda which is also related to open government, and to strengthen this network, as we ask those who join us that they can articulate and work with and predict with the work. These networks and conversations are happening, and we incentivize them to happen. And then we encourage them to be participants and share their experiences with each other. And this is available to all of you for your experience, to have our experience. Thank you.
As the process, the process in Argentina has been very interesting. One of the things that is worth pointing out is the collaborative process for the design of this program, the necessities of the different actors involved, but also the focus, which is so particular, where you identify the needs in order to improve the capacities and also advance in these policies. Continuing with another example, which comes from Colombia, where there have also been examples of local participations in the national action plans. Diana Dager is in charge of citizens' participation in Corona, which will give us an idea of the civil participation and She will also talk to us about the example and the model in Bogota. So, would you share with us the Colombian experience? Thank you very much, Jose Maria. While while we have the presentation, they said they will have. I don't know if the presentation is ready, but meanwhile, I would like to say hello. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Jose Maria, greetings to all for the panel and everyone here in the audience today. As Jose Maria mentioned, I want to comment about open state and local governments in Colombia. And to start, I would like to continue this conversation proposed by Jose Maria about collaboration for the open state. How many of these people, please raise your hand, have as a purpose on Open America to collaborate with someone about open state? More than half of the audience. So this will help us to see the importance of the collaboration, of the union of this different sectors, different people, different actors, in order to have greater works. And this is what I want to. This is the story that I want to tell you about today. The story in Colombia from the point of view of the local government and the national government. It is a story of collaboration which I would like to mention from this perspective of the Fundación Corona. In Fundación Corona, we're very much interested in promoting the social mobility, which is basically what do we do in order for the people to ascend in opportunities, in order to have better conditions than those of which they were born. In Colombia, 11 generations are needed in order to come out of poverty. So in the Corona Foundation will try to reduce this gap in society. And one of the ways we're doing it is through the citizens' participation, the open state, because the inclusive institutions are a pillar of the social mobility in the world. In particular, we do this from the point of view of open state. As members of the Multi-Actors Forum, and we also participate and belong to the local forum, and we support, along with other organizations of the civil society, different local governments, and also the national government to strengthen the policies of open state. Before I share the lessons that I have learned, tell you a bit about this context of how the open state, national open state, has grown in Colombia. We started the way of open government partnership in 2011 with our by entering officially the partnership of open government, creating our action plan. First, it was a brief, and then it became the 2013-2015 plan. It did not have any local commitment. It only created this partnership of open government at a national level. With our second plan, 2015-2017, we began the story of local commitment with the open government. One commitment of transparency and accountability, and in the end, a commitment for a specific department, which was the Department of Antioquia, which the capital is Medellin. In the next action plan, the third in Colombia, we had 6 local governments in a special chapter of commitment of open government, of open state. So we continue to grow, as Jose Maria was saying. It was one of the great purposes of open government, OGP. Today, with the current plan, we have a special chapter of local open government, where there are 6 specific local governments with commitments of open government. Palmira, Cali, Bogota. There are several other municipalities that are represented. And as you can see, it has been an exponential growth. We have different commitments. In addition to this, it is important to take into account that the open government partnership in Bogota in 2020, and recently we celebrated that created also Cartagena, Manizales, Sucre. We have several local governments that have created its partnerships for open government at a local level, and other governments that are continuing and following this example, but they are advancing in open government. From the Corona Foundation, we have Buenaventura, Bucaramanga, and these are also governments that are advancing to create their own chapters. What have we learned from this story that I have told you? I would like to tell you 3 good practices that I can tell you that I hope it can enrich this conversation in order to collaborate more and better for the open government. There are 3 specific challenges. The first practice, which has been very successful, is that there has been an advance, both regional and national, in each department and locally also, which has not been managed simply from the national government. So we try to. The growth has been at a national level. Then in Bogota, then you had the OGP, and then this tries to promote the whole region, which is the central region. And also, we also see that in the Pacific region, how certain governments have promoted and generating good practices that become contagious for other cities like Cali, Palmira, which are cities in the Cauca Valley. Also, begin to it's contagious for the other regions. This brings me to the second challenge or good practice, and that is these different experiences have brought the local governments have been collaborative also, and they bring good experiences from one side to the other, and here we see from the Corona Foundation, we are advancing in a model of a competition where good practices and the elections of local governments have helped us to feed the formation of local politicians in the region. Collaboration has been fundamental with different partners, with the institutes of public policies. There's a toolkit of implementation of open government, which has allowed us to share the lessons, and we have seen a great opening of local governments of sharing their experiences in order to enrich those new versions of open governments in different parts of the country. The third good practice, which has been very important, that is the advance of the open government in Colombia and the civil society. For me, it has been a pleasure to work in the forum, both at local and at national level, because the civil society is absolutely collaborative. The tasks are shared because we know that together we can go farther. And we have great advances in the civil society. When we work together, we create a letter to the presidential candidates in order to position the topic in the electoral debate. And at some point, when they, still the petition aspects had not been implemented, we started to pressure the government in order to implement a law that established the times of the right to implementation. We, it is very important that we work together, and we are looking for finances for our next action government plan. So we will, because we will reach further and advance more in an open government, local and national, if we work together. Together for Transparency is a partnership which very dynamic from the USA with several partners which have also promoted the open state. These are the three challenges that I consider very important because everything is not great. We have to promote the open state beyond the will of the government. Sometimes we have problems with this. The second, to institutionalize the collaboration in the public administration plans and the budget. And the third great challenge, and this touches the history of Colombia. Colombia is a country which had a armed conflict, so positioning the open state requires to create conditions of safety and for the public society to participate. Without these conditions and without creating safety in the territories, it will be very difficult to continue to advance in an open state. I would like to finish with a short message. As I said, the growth of open state in Colombia, from the Pacific to the Central region, the coffee region, the Caribbean area in Colombia, there is an absence, which is the Amazon part and the Inoquia region. The conditions there worry us. These are regions in Colombia where, unfortunately, the conditions of quality of life are not the best, and where there are many problems of safety. If we concentrate in the advancement of these regions, we will continue to open the gap in these regions. We want to continue to work together with the open state, but not leaving anybody behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diana, for this experience. I would like to keep one of your three recommendations, which is the role of articulating an institutionalization of that the civil society could give to this. A long time, but if we think in verticality, which are part of a government, of open government. And speaking of your last observations, which is not everything is pink, and we invite Eduardo Vega, who is director of Fundapio, of the civil society, which also participates in the national process of OGP, but also of the local process of Santo Domingo Los and Ecuador, one of the local members of OGP. In Ecuador, they're thinking about an open state and how to articulate it, and how we like to share part of your challenges and what have been resolved according to your experience. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. As Jose Maria said, we'd like to share some reflections in Ecuador that is being carried out in my country. Fundapi, the foundation that I represent, we have been involved in the process of the nuclear part, which you call, since it started in Ecuador, to abide by the open government and its first action plans to 1920 to 2022, extended by the pandemic. And now its second plan that has a open state objective and motivating the adoption and implementation of action plan of OGPs for the prefecture of Santo Domingo de Los Angeles, which is a province in the case of Ecuador. In that context, there's an experience and challenge and the logic of to be able to find those mechanisms which will articulate precisely those collaboration between the national and the local and the framework of open government. Then in Ecuador, we have a new development, and so we're starting with the second plan with this perspective, and the first plan has been ended. In that context, one of the challenges is how did we articulate the local, which some way connects with the national and vice versa, how the national could be projected into the local. And one of the first consideration would be what the norm in Ecuador allows this articulation. The Constitution of Ecuador establishes those model of administration in the country. We define autonomous governments with the governments that manage provincial, cantons, and parochs, and regional, which are not have been implemented, and give them a financial autonomy. So there is, in that perspective, there is no way in which national could be articulated on a local basis. The other way of looking at it, that we could land into open government, would be systems of local information, which is a figure in the country for the local governments to be able to create systems that effectively communicate with the citizenship related to the territorial administration and citizen participation. And this has been functioning well, although with a slow adoption. How is this constituted? They have the Secretary of National Secretary of Planification, which respond to the executive power, and a National Council in which representatives participate of the government, the local government, represented by unions. This is a figure that exists in Ecuador. Local governments that depend on the territory, provincial, municipality, and paroch. The identity is called Ngope, and the municipality is Ame, and in the parochial is Condobopar. If the mechanism is able to articulate this communication between the unions, the challenge there is not always the unions are able to gather all their participants. So we have local governments that in our logics of Ecuador are the largest. Many times act without coordinating with these unions. So this mechanism in Santo Domingo de Los Angeles, that was the door through which we were able to construct this process of open government, because the norm that was ordered from the prefecture that were already rehabilitated since from the ministry allow the local government. So this logic was used to activate this articulation in open government between the national and local. This system that are being articulated first by the Ministry of Planification, which issues the technical norms, and we also have the National Competence Council, which articulates the logic of the governments to operate. So with this concept of open government, since although there is no establishment that is allowed to activate this in Ecuador, we have the will, according to the plan of action, to be able to activate it. So the first step in that cooperation of open government has been to involve in this group of multi-actors with some roles, the unions, which I mentioned, that in some way represent those local governments. In Ecuador, we have 24 provinces, 23 provincial governments, because Galapagos is something different, 221 cantons, 821 parrots. That is the way that we are finding to implement this articulation of the national and local. Now we are in that process of the civil society, the academy, and the government is implementing now the second plan of action, which is searching to include commitments of the local governments to allow us to connect with them. Then, we have now working to have this articulation, although until today we have not had this being developed. Saying this, mentions some challenges that we identified that could be necessary considering for this to be able to work. The first is the maturity. Open government needs some maturity, some mature thinking. Not only to be implemented, but to prioritize this articulation with the national. And here, we mentioned a particular case which it's very anecdotic. At the end of 19, before the pandemic, we were gathering with the mayors, where we got united about 70 of the cantons, 10 or 11 of the others. And in some cases, we saw that we could articulate a open government policy. Something I remember always is with a certain mayor, his dynamic was to attend several people at the same time. You gathered with the mayor, but you were surrounded by 2 or 3 other organizations. So that happened many times. So one locality asked for a bridge. The other one said that they had 2 chickens stolen. So that what is priority in a territory and why you could prioritize that this articulation. So this is a very important theme, subject. Not all the local governments are in a level to prioritize these subject. In the case of Ecuador, the autonomy that is exercised in the local government is literal. They have their own norms, their own capacity to issue norms. And as Los Angeles, we're working on local ordinance to allow to implement this open government. Guayaquil, which is a canton, we have an ordinance of transparency of open data. And this does not connect with any national articulation. So these are local norms, which is their power, within the power. And this is also a challenge because although the local governments are able to implement it, and not necessarily do they link to the national. So how do we allow an autonomous organism to comply with a national policy? We just mentioned that the civil society is key in this process, although the definition of OGP establishes to there are many times it's difficult to have the local actors to be able to develop this priority. For instance, the Santo Domingo Los Achilas, the activation with the civil society. It was with ecotourism academy, commerce, and the representatives of ethnias, because they have an ethnias representative, which is considered, and that's how the way it was articulated. If we know that the process of OGP is built by a participating way, and that once the country is included in the local policies, based on the experience, it would be a barrier to implement the open government. But we hope that we do create a channel to be able to structure an open government with a major impactment. And I thank you for your attention.
Gracias, Eduardo, por.
Thank you, Eduardo, for sharing this reflection on the complexities faced. We have to close because we have the next panel. But I would like to thank all the panel participants on a vision of the complexities, but also how we have achieved to resolve these complexities of these articulating agents, which are the necessary points to be able to give life to a policy of open government from the different points of views and from the different programs and the autonomous localities, as we have said today. And we continue. Please continue to keep talking on these experiences. Thank you.
Hola, buenas tardes. Ya casi estamos listos para empezar el próximo panel.
Hello, good afternoon. We're ready to start the next panel. Those who are farther away, if you would like to come closer, you're welcome. I get it.
Vamos a empezar, ¿les parece? Buenos días.
Good afternoon. We're about to start this panel. My name is Caterina Falcon Olmero. I am the representative of the BIS group in the Dominican Republic. And I'm here with a luxury panel, which I wish to introduce. Is Pablo Saiz, who is the National Director of Public Contracts in Paraguay. Welcome. To his side, Becky Lena Borg, who is Vice President, Deputy General Counsel of Microsoft. Carlos Pimentel, who is the Director of Public Contracts in the Dominican Republic. And Lindsay Mackinshaw, the Director of the Data and Engagement Open Partnership. Welcome. Today in this panel, we have more or less 60 minutes. We're going to talk about technology, and since technology can help us to detect frauds, especially in the process of acquisitions. And many of us know that obviously technology plays a main role in this process, in this effort. Having said that, we know that the pressure of our societies of wanting to know more of how the public resources are being spent, this pressure is every day is stronger. And in this sense, we would like to listen from our experts what they have done, what they have experienced, which will help us in a way to prevent or mitigate this type of fraud. And with this, I will give the mic to Pablo, as I mentioned before. He's a director of public contracts in Paraguay, and he's going to tell us about what they have done in the in the previous years and the lessons they have learned. Thank you so much, and good afternoon. In this moment, I am in charge of the public contract in the Dominican Republic. This is very important as a administrative lab because it condenses as 100% the contracts of a nation, both in the central contracts and also autonomous and governmental entities. We have approximately 460 units in the whole country, an administrator, approximately 36,000 providers which are registered, regardless their type of activity, about 30,000 services, about and a market which is about $3 billion annually. What is important, since from a technological point of view, is the centralization of the information and the protagonic place that the ecosystem of purchases has in the country. The system of public purchases is called system of information of public purchases. Our role is to provide information and handle that information. What did we do? Well, we always try to establish and present ourselves as a modernized institution. Of course, we began with the digitalization of information, but basically into 2014 is where we have an inflection point in terms of quality of information, thanks to the process of the structural process with the partnership in 2014. Thanks to that process of the structural process, we discovered this gold mine where we were sitting. And from this identification, we continue to exercise the detection of more information that we're not taking advantage of. If you ask ourselves, the brand of the products is an information that is in your system? Yes, it is. Of course, it is going to be identified in a contract, but it is not in a structural data, because there's a lot of commercial information that we're losing. Nowadays, we have more than 80 data centers which are in the structure, but every time we take a look at the document, we find another information that deserves to be incorporated in the system of public contracts. Nowadays, technology presents itself as an ally, fundamental ally for transparency. Transparency is the mechanism of survival in a society which is asking for information and which has great expectations. And sometimes we disconnect ourselves and do not attend those. The pandemic was an opportunity through which the systems of public purchases were analyzed by the public like never before. From that historical moment, never again can we that the information of public contracts will not be observed by the citizens. They learn what is lost and what is won. These technologies are very important in front of this new paradigm through international artificial information, etc. We have initiated processes almost which are investigated with the Alan Turing Institute, and we have also developed Red Plus, which are basically, and they let us know that this network will always alert us of what is happening. We have also worked with the OES, with the CAF, for the creation of rules of experts that would allow us to detect anomalies in the process of contracts. And one of the greatest experiences is by the hand of the Inter-American Development Bank and Microsoft to create alerts in the Flex network, which allow us to detect online before the problems become in escape of monies, like the intentions of reducing the amount of contracts in order to prevent anomalies. For example, increase the amount of contracts that already have been signed. In that way, we have this fundamental characteristic of the red flags, which allow us to identify situations which deserve our attention. What is the problem? Why can't the verifiers do that? Because sometimes we talk about an overpopulation of public servants. We are in a process that might seem simple. Well, we present the offers, but if we multiply this by 15,000 in a year, we notice that we cannot be thinking of the human eye as the only element of verification. The state is dies and born every year with the yearly budget. We find ourselves the story of Sisyphus of making and repeating the everyday charge, and it seems like we never learn from the same mistakes. One of the advantages of technology is that it allows us incredibly to learn from the mistakes, program a tool, and let that tool remind us that we already committed that mistake, and we're not going to do it to make it again. So this is basically what we're trying to do, trying to break the cyclic problem of through technology.
No, excelente.
Excellent, Pablo. And here you talk of the challenges. By hearing you, it sounds simple, but it's not the case. But an additional question of this experience, if you should give us 2 recommendations of what we should do to a process like this to be as easy as possible, what would it be? For this battle, you have to prepare with the data as a fundamental weapon, to invest in the quality of the equipment, identify all the data that as public management you have under or above. The challenges will always be there. The most important challenge is to know what will be the reaction once we have identified beforehand the possible problems. We have the data, we have the red flags. Now is from this universe of 13,000 licitations. Now we cannot present the volume as a lack of reaction by an institution. You cannot say there are 13,000 processes, so we can not cover all. But if we have the instruments to check these, the reactions of the institutions will be different. Now we have to know who will be handling this instrument. It will not be of the providers, if not be of the government. It is of the citizens. And having the citizens to take power of this instrument.
For Becky. We just heard a minute ago Pablo talking about banderas rojas, or red flags, and we do know that one of the leading companies in really pushing this methodology is Microsoft. And quite honestly, when I heard it, I was like, no, Microsoft is my computer, it's my laptop. But I had to learn Microsoft is much more than that. So maybe our first question for you, Becky, from your side, why do you think Microsoft is in this line of business, and how do you see the future when we talk about red flags and any other tools to anticipate fraud and corruption?
Buenos dias. I must apologize for my lack of Spanish. I am very much appreciative of the opportunity to be here today at América Abierta, and I'm particularly happy to be able to talk to you a little bit about the work that Microsoft is doing through our Advanced Cloud Transparency Services Initiative, or ACTS, A-C-T-S. The work that Microsoft does through ACTS is grounded in our company's mission, and in particular with respect to governments, which is where we're focused with ACTS today. The mission is to help every organization achieve more. Our focus in ACTS is to innovate using data and technology to accelerate transparency. And I know that this goal is shared by all of my panelists today, and I appreciate Director Seitz's comments. We had a great partnership working on red flags in Paraguay. One of the things that we've learned through ACTS is that if you bring together previously siloed data, you create a tremendous opportunity to gain insights that you cannot see with the naked eye. We believe that everyone can benefit from the collaboration around and the opening of data, and that if you do that, you combine that with the resiliency, the agility, and the security of the cloud, you will have proprietary, open, and commercial data be able to be combined in visualizations that will allow newest analysis to help you enable efficient and effective decisions for governments in areas that are of importance to them. And this could include fiscal and public payments, for example, procurement, tax systems, and investigations. In doing this work that Microsoft is doing through the ACTS initiative, we are not doing it alone. We work in partnership, and it's very important for us to do that. We bring a lot of technology expertise to the table, but we actually need very much the partners that we work with to make this initiative successful. And that's why it was so important that we were able to do a project like in Paraguay with a partner who was very willing to be a partner. Microsoft is a long-standing partner of the Inter-American Development Bank. Am I still okay? It just went quiet on my headphone. You can still understand me? It went quiet on my headphone. Okay, great. Sorry, I lost my sound. Microsoft is a long-standing partner of the Inter-American Development Bank. We've been working together for over 10 years. And one of the things that Microsoft and IDB have been working on over these many years is to leverage the power of the cloud and advanced data analytics to applications such as the IDB's Mapa Inversiones, as well as to the Red Flags project that we just talked about. And we also do a lot of work at Microsoft with our own internal Microsoft Research Organization, which is a groundbreaking researchers organization, and I'll be talking about the work that we're doing there in just a little bit. But that includes things like some really interesting work we're doing around beneficial ownership. One of the reasons, and to get back to your question, you asked us what motivates us to get into this work, why are we doing it? And we have long looked for opportunities at Microsoft to find ways to use technology to solve hard problems that will benefit many. Our motivation here comes from the fact that we know that a lack of transparency can have profound negative consequences in people's lives, particularly when it enables corruption. And corruption is arguably one of the most intractable problems in history. Microsoft has done a lot of work internally. We operate transparency services in our own operations, and we thought that there was a great opportunity here to take what we've been doing and try to apply it in different contexts. We believe that technology could bring a new lens and open up new avenues in problems that have existed forever. We see a real opportunity to do this now because of the convergence of technology. So if you think about what has happened and changed over the last 5 to 10 years, it's really been the advancements made in cloud computing, along with AI and machine learning powered services that are developed to be much more easy to use and are capable of learning. ACTS is a recognition that this is a potentially transformational moment for what is possible, and that we have the amazing power through cloud computing to do things at scale like the Red Flags project to make data more transparent to a broader group of people. We also recognize that not everybody is a data scientist, and it's important that we be able to present information in ways that is consumable to a broader set of people. And then we will be able to scale what we are doing and identify potential corruption before it happens, so that resources can go to people who need them most.
Thank you so much, and it's really impressive what Microsoft has been able to do over these past years. And that maybe leads me to my next question. We all know the world is changing really fast. technology is changing very fast every day. There seems to be a new word. Today I learned data lake. Didn't know that that word existed, but finally I updated myself. So my question is, if we think about big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, what's kind of your outlook? How do you see that these technologies could really change what we're doing in this region and specifically also here in the Dominican Republic?
Thank you for that question, and technology is indeed rapidly evolving. The work that we do through ACTS is really focused on how can we and partners demonstrate that we can use technology to do new analysis of things that we already have our ability to do. We have the data, as you mentioned, Director Seitz, and the Sisyphean task of always trying to push the rock up the hill. It's very important if we can figure out how to take what we already currently have and analyze it in a different way by using technology to improve both transparency and operations. These early warning systems that we're talking about are the red flags. They use modern technology, things like advanced techniques that include mapping, relationship mapping, pattern recognition, and data visualization tools that can shine a light on risks. And customized algorithms, such as red flags, can highlight potentially suspicious activities so that people can call them out and do more investigation and potentially address them before something happens. This is something that improves very greatly the current process, which is mostly manually monitoring of what data you have and looking for risk signals. We understand that governments are starting in very different places when it comes to data. And so we are very appreciative of the fact that in some cases we're just going to work with wherever governments are, and we're going to try to figure out how we can help to get you into a place where we can mobilize the power of the cloud and do this at more scale. So regardless of how our governments are organized today, we think it's very important that we have a role to play in helping them use technology to solve some of these transparency problems. Paraguay's Red Flag project highlighted an incredible opportunity for us to increase transparency. And in addition to the red flags themselves, we identified another opportunity during the project that we thought was super interesting, and that was the need for a way to better access market pricing data for competitive bidding on government contracts. In response, we developed a pricing catalog that searches vast amounts of data and insights and highlights risky transactions that may need additional focus. For example, the pricing catalog will allow a red flag system to create an alert when a bid is unusually high or when it's unusually low based on historical data for that good or service. And so red flags can make sense of a vast amount of data and help identify issues for potential risk before they become a problem. It's equally important that you bring data together, and then by using the power of the cloud, we believe that we can open up possibilities that we don't know that exist today. And one other area that I wanted to call out that we're doing in conjunction with our Microsoft research is work on beneficial ownership. Beneficial ownership tracking is